You're sitting across from a stranger. He has no name, at least none that he's given you. His hands are folded on the table in front of him. Calm, perfectly still, like he's done this 1,000 times before. On the table between you sits a single white envelope. Inside that envelope, $1 million. And all you have to do is say yes. You should feel excited. You should feel relieved. $1 million. Life-changing money. The kind of money people pray for their entire lives. But something is wrong. Something in the way he's watching you, not with eagerness, not with generosity, but with the patient, careful eyes of a man who already knows what you're going to choose. And somehow, that is the most terrifying thing you have ever seen. Let me take you back. 6 weeks earlier, his name is Daniel Avery, 34 years old. He lives in a studio apartment on the 3rd floor of a building that smells like mildew and someone else is cooking. He makes his coffee with a machine that takes 4 minutes because it's the cheap kind. And every morning he tells himself that next month, things will be different. They never are. Daniel isn't a bad person. He's just a tired one. He works as a data analyst for a mid-size insurance company that he's given 9 years of his life to. 9 years of spreadsheets and quarterly reports and performance reviews, where his manager tells him he's meeting expectations, not exceeding them, not falling short, just meeting them. Like a flat line. He has $4,200 in savings. He owes $61,000 in student loans. His mother's Parkinson's has been worsening, and the facility she's in, a place that smells like antiseptic and forced cheerfulness, costs $3,800 a month. He's been quietly covering the difference between what her insurance pays and what the facility charges. Has been for 2 years, alone. He hasn't told anyone. That's the thing about Daniel. He carries everything alone. He always has. Since his father left when he was 11. Since his older sister moved to Canada and stopped calling. Since the woman he thought he was going to marry looked at their life together and decided she wanted something more. He sits in his apartment some nights, staring at the water stain on the ceiling above his bed, doing the math over and over in his head. The same math, the same conclusion. He is running out of time. And then, on a Tuesday morning in October, grey sky, wet leaves stuck to the pavement, Daniel gets on the wrong train. He doesn't realize it at first. He's standing, holding the rail, half asleep, his headphones in. But the music has stopped because his phone died. He's just standing there in the silence, swaying with the car, watching his own reflection in the dark window of the tunnel. That's when the man sits down across from him. He's older, maybe 60, maybe older. It's genuinely hard to say. He wears a charcoal grey suit that is either extremely expensive or so old it's become dignified again. His silver hair is neat. His posture is almost uncomfortably straight, and he is staring directly at Daniel with the kind of focused attention that people usually reserve for art they're trying to understand. Daniel pulls one earbud out. "Can I help you?" The man smiles. It doesn't reach his eyes. "Actually," he says, "I think I can help you." He reaches into his jacket, slowly, deliberately, and places a business card on the empty seat between them. There is no name on it, no logo, just an address printed in clean black type. And a time, Thursday, 7 p.m. Daniel picks it up. "What is this?" "An invitation," the man says, "to a conversation." "A conversation about what?" The man tilts his head just slightly. "About a problem you have, and a solution I'm offering." Daniel almost laughs. He almost gives the card back. He's been in the city long enough to know that strangers on trains who offer solutions are usually selling something terrible. But then, the man says something that stops him cold. He says Daniel's mother's name, her full name, the facility she's in, the exact amount her care costs every month. He says it quietly, without drama, the way you'd read something off a grocery list. Daniel's blood goes cold. "Who are you?" "Someone," the man says, as the train begins to slow. "Who can make all of that disappear?" The doors open. The man stands, smooths his jacket, and steps onto the platform. Before the doors close again, he glances back over his shoulder. "Thursday," he says. "I hope you'll come." Doors close. Long beat. Daniel stares at the business card in his hand. He should throw it away. He keeps it. Thursday comes. Daniel tells himself he's only going out of curiosity. He tells himself he won't agree to anything. He puts the address in his phone, a restaurant in a part of the city he's never been to, elegant without being showy. And he goes. The man is already seated. There is hot tea on the table. 2 cups. They exchange no small talk. The man doesn't offer his name, and Daniel, for some reason, doesn't ask again. They just sit across from each other in the amber light of the restaurant while the city moves past the window, indifferent. The man explains it simply. $1 million will be wired to Daniel's account within 24 hours of his agreement. No taxes. It will be handled. No strings regarding how he spends it. His mother's care, his loans, a new life, all of it possible. Daniel waits. "And the catch?" he asks. The man folds his hands. "There is a person," he says, "someone you've never met. I need you to deliver something to them, a package. You don't open the package. You don't ask what's inside. You deliver it to an address I'll give you, on a specific date, at a specific time. And then you walk away and never speak of any of this again." Daniel stares at him. "That's it?" "That's it." "What's in the package?" "That's not part of the agreement." "What happens to the person I deliver it to?" The man's expression doesn't change. Not even slightly. That's also not part of the agreement. And that's when Daniel feels it. That specific stomach-dropping dread you get when you realize you've been looking at something the wrong way. When the image shifts and you can't unsee what it actually is. He is not being asked to do something small. He's being asked to do something he can never take back. He doesn't say yes that night. He goes home and sits in the dark for a long time. And then the pressure begins. Not from the man. He doesn't call, doesn't appear. The pressure comes from inside Daniel, which is so much worse. He thinks about his mother, about the way she looked last Sunday when he visited, smaller than the week before, somehow. The way she held his hand and called him by his father's name by mistake, and then caught herself, and the look on her face when she did, that brief flash of grief and confusion, and then the effort she made to smile through it. He thinks about the math, the months he has left before he physically cannot continue covering her care. 4, maybe 5 if he's careful. He thinks about what $1 million actually means. He lets himself think about it, really think about it, for the first time. He could move her to a better facility. He could stop working for people who see him as a flat line. He could breathe. But then he thinks about the package. He tries to imagine what's inside. He cycles through possibilities, documents, money, something illegal but ultimately harmless. And each time he almost convinces himself it's nothing. Something shifts. Some quiet, honest part of him knows. You don't pay someone $1 million to deliver something harmless. You use FedEx for that. He calls a friend, Marcus, the closest thing he has to a best friend, and without giving specifics, describes the situation as a hypothetical. Marcus laughs. "Bro, you're overthinking it. $1 million? For delivering a package? What's wrong with you?" "What if someone gets hurt?" Daniel asks. Marcus goes quiet for a second. "I mean, do you know that? Or are you just assuming?" And that's the problem. He doesn't know. He can't know. The man gave him nothing. No context, no names, No moral framework to hang any of this on. Just a number. Just a choice. That week, Daniel visits his mother twice instead of once. He sits with her longer than usual. He reads to her from a novel she loved in the 70s, the one she always said changed her life. She falls asleep to the sound of his voice, and he sits there in the chair beside her bed, watching her breathe, and he feels the full, crushing weight of love, how it is the most beautiful thing in the world, and also, sometimes, the most dangerous. Because love makes you capable of things you would never otherwise consider. He finds himself thinking about a philosophical concept, something he half remembers from a college ethics class. The trolley problem. Do you pull the lever? Do you actively cause one harm to prevent another? Where does your responsibility begin and end? But this isn't a trolley problem. In the trolley problem, you can see the tracks. You can see the people. Here, Daniel is being asked to pull a lever in the dark. Deep breath from narrator. On the 6th day, he calls the number on the back of the card. The man picks up on the first ring, as though he's been waiting. "I have some questions," Daniel says. "I know," the man replies. "Come back, Thursday." Pause. So Daniel goes back, and sitting across from the man in that amber-lit restaurant, he asks everything he can think of. He asks who the recipient is. He asks what organization the man works for. He asks whether anyone will be physically harmed. The man answers none of it. He simply waits for Daniel to finish, and then says very quietly, "You're a good person, Daniel. I chose you because of that. Not in spite of it." That sentence haunts Daniel more than anything else the man has said, because a good person wouldn't do this. And yet this man, whoever he is, he chose him specifically because he is good. What does that mean? What does a good person's involvement protect or destroy? The envelope sits on the table, white, sealed. "I need your answer tonight," the man says. "You have 1 hour." 1 hour. Daniel walks out of the restaurant and onto the street. The city is loud around him, horns and voices and music bleeding from a bar down the block, but he can barely hear any of it. He walks. He thinks about the package. He thinks about his mother's hands, how they've started to shake when she holds a cup. He thinks about the 9 years, the flat line, the water stain on the ceiling. He thinks, is this who I am? Is this the story I want to tell about myself? And then, maybe for the first time, he thinks, what story have I been telling? Because here's the thing about Daniel Avery that even Daniel hasn't fully confronted. He has spent his entire adult life making careful choices, safe choices, moral choices he'd call them. He's never stolen, never cheated, never lied in any significant way. He has followed the rules of a system that has given him, in return, a studio apartment, a dying savings account, and the slow, quiet grief of watching someone he loves disappear, increment by increment. His goodness has not protected anyone. It has only protected his idea of himself. Pause. He stops walking. He's standing in front of a pharmacy. Through the window, he can see the lights, bright, clinical, ordinary. A woman inside is paying for something. A man is reading the label on a box. Normal, ordinary, safe. Daniel looks at his reflection in the glass. Then he walks back to the restaurant. He sits down. He looks the man in the eye. And he says yes. The money arrives in his account the next morning. He stares at it on his phone screen for a long time. 11 digits. Real. The package arrives 3 days later. A courier drops it off at his apartment. No return address, wrapped in plain brown paper, about the size of a hardcover book. It's light. Almost too light. He doesn't shake it. He puts it on his kitchen counter and doesn't look at it for the rest of the evening. The delivery date is set for 2 weeks out. An address across town. A residential building. Nothing extraordinary. 3rd floor. Apartment 308. He is to knock twice, leave the package at the door if no one answers, and leave. Under no circumstances is he to speak to anyone if he encounters them. Those 2 weeks are the strangest of Daniel's life. He moves his mother to a better facility, a real one, with a garden and staff who know her by name within a week. He watches her face the first time she sees her new room, the sunlight coming through the window, and she touches his arm and says, "Danny, this is too much." And he says, "It's not enough." And he means it both ways. He sleeps better and worse simultaneously. Better because the math has changed. Worse because of what's sitting on his counter in brown paper. The night before the delivery, he almost opens it. His hands are on it. He sits at his kitchen table at 2 a.m. with the package in front of him, his fingernails at the edge of the tape, and he just stops because he realizes something. If he opens it and it's something harmless, he'll feel foolish. But if he opens it and it's something terrible, then he will know. And once he knows, he has to decide again. And he's not sure he can do that a second time. So he doesn't open it. He delivers it. Apartment 308. He takes the elevator up. His heart is loud in his own chest. The hallway smells like pasta and carpet cleaner. He walks to 308, knocks twice. Silence. He places the package against the door. He turns to leave, and the door opens. Pause. A woman stands in the doorway, mid-40s, dark circles under her eyes. She looks at the package, then up at Daniel. "You're the one he sent," she says. Daniel doesn't answer. He's already walking away. "Wait," she calls after him. He doesn't stop. He takes the elevator down. He pushes through the front door into the cold air. He walks 2 blocks. 3. He finds a bench and sits on it and puts his head in his hands and breathes. He hears footsteps. He looks up, and she's there. She followed him. "I'm not going to hurt you," she says. Her voice is tired, the kind of tired that lives in your bones. "I just need you to know something." "I don't want to know anything," Daniel says. "I know you don't," she says, "but you should." Pause. She sits down on the bench beside him. She is quiet for a moment. "What was in it?" Daniel finally asks. She looks at him. "Documents," she says. "Evidence of what a man, a very powerful man, has been doing for a very long time. What he's done to people like me. What he's done to families." Daniel stares at her. "Who was the man? The one who hired me?" She looks almost amused, not happy, just like someone who has arrived somewhere they've been traveling toward for a long time. "He was the lawyer," she says. "One of the few people who had the evidence and couldn't deliver it himself. Too watched, too exposed. He needed someone clean, someone no one would look twice at." She pauses. "Someone good." The word lands like something heavy. Someone good. "The documents," Daniel says slowly. "What happens now?" She holds up the package. She brought it with her, clutched against her chest. "Now," she says. "Now they go to people who know what to do with them." 3 weeks later, Daniel reads about it in the news. A federal investigation. A man whose name he recognizes, not personally, but the way you recognize a name that's been powerful and quiet for decades. Financial crimes, exploitation, a network of complicity that stretches across cities, industries, institutions, and at the center of it, the evidence. Evidence that was, according to the article, delivered through a chain of intermediaries so clean that investigators have not been able to trace the original source. Daniel puts his phone down on his kitchen table. He sits there for a long time. He thinks about the man on the train, the way he said, "I chose you because of that." Not in spite of it. He understands it now, finally. He wasn't chosen because he was naive. He wasn't chosen because he was desperate, though he was. He was chosen because a person with nothing left to protect is still capable of doing the right thing. They just need a reason. And a person with a reason they actually believe in. Not an abstract principle, but a real one, a human one, can walk through things that would stop someone who only believes in the idea of themselves. Daniel's reason was his mother. That's not a shameful thing. It turns out to be the most human thing about him. He picks up his phone again. He calls Marcus. "Hey, you remember that hypothetical?" "Yeah?" "Someone got the package." Long pause. "Was it good or bad?" Daniel looks out his window. The sky is doing something extraordinary, that specific shade of blue that only happens in early winter, when the air is cold enough to be honest. "I think," he says quietly, "it was good." He hangs up. He doesn't hear from the man in the grey suit again. He doesn't expect to. But sometimes, in the evenings, when he visits his mother and reads to her from that book she loved, he thinks about that hour he walked the city streets alone, with the weight of $1 million in one hand and his own conscience in the other. He thinks about what he chose. And he thinks about whether choosing the right thing for the wrong reason is still the right choice. He still doesn't have an answer. Maybe that's the point. So here's where I leave you. Because here's the question that Daniel's story actually asks. Not the simple one, not, would you take the $1 million? But the real one underneath it. How much of what you call your values is actually just the absence of sufficient pressure? It's easy to be good when nothing costs you anything, when honesty doesn't mean losing something, when kindness isn't inconvenient, when you can afford to follow the rules. But Daniel Avery didn't have that luxury. He was standing at the edge of something real, his mother's life, his own exhaustion, a system that had given him nothing back for 9 years of careful living. And in that moment, he made a choice. A complicated one that he couldn't fully see, couldn't fully justify, couldn't fully defend on any clean ethical grounds. And somehow, it was right. Or was it? Is it? Because here's what I want you to ask yourself. What if the package had been something else? What if Daniel never found out? What if he went to his grave having delivered something he didn't understand? And it wasn't evidence. It was something harmful? Would the reason still matter? Would the goodness of his intent have protected him? Protected anyone? I genuinely don't know. And I think that's what makes this story true. Not in the factual sense, but in the way that real choices feel. Messy, incomplete, shot through with love and fear, and the particular loneliness of being the only one who has to live inside your own head. So I want to ask you, and I mean it, leave it in the comments, because I actually want to know. Would you have opened the package? Would you have said yes at all? And if you're honest with yourself, really honest, are you certain? Or is your answer dependent on things being easier than they were for Daniel? Think about it. And I'll see you